Hi everyone, it's Amy. In the previous video, we went over the deviant offense cycle. Now today, I'm going to introduce you to the relapse prevention model. As I said with the deviant offense cycle, the same thing applies for the relapse prevention model. Anything that you're doing in your life to hurt yourself or to hurt someone else, you can apply this relapse prevention model to that. Relapses do not happen unexpectedly. They don't just happen. Nothing just happens. A variety of factors influence whether or not a sex offender, for example, will commit another act of abuse. Now, in showing you the model, I know 2 videos in a row with visual aids. I don't want to spoil you. We start out, let me direct you over here. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see it, but I am going to repost this whole thing on Instagram and on Facebook. And I suppose I could put it on Twitter too. Now I really am spoiling you. All right, so what we start out with in the relapse prevention model is first a commitment to abstinence. All right? Now, normally when we talk about abstinence in casual conversation, we are talking about refraining from sex. When we talk about it in the relapse prevention model, it's a little different. When we talk about it, we mean refraining from whatever it is that you should not be doing. Whether it's drinking, looking at pornography, gambling. Insert your own word into the I will not. And that is your abstinence. When you're in a state of abstinence, you possess management skills. You have self-efficacy, which means effectiveness or success. So you're telling yourself that you will succeed, and you have success expectancy. All right? While you're doing this, you may experience super optimism, which is a thinking error that we went over in previous videos. But it is a thinking error that we discussed where you feel that you will succeed and just saying it makes it so without even making an effort. All right? It's not realistic. You might be psyching yourself up so much that you make a seemingly unimportant decision. Now, a seemingly unimportant decision, that's a little bit of a confusing term. What it means, a seemingly unimportant decision, is something that seemingly does not contribute to reoffending. Because it seems like such a normal thing to do. But it actually does contribute to reoffending because, let me give you an example. You're going to run an errand. You're going to go to the grocery store. And that seems pretty normal, right? People always go to the grocery store. It's not an unusual thing to do. But you decide to go at 4:30 in the afternoon when mothers have picked up their kids from school and the grocery store is teeming with mothers and children, and you are a child molester. So, while it seems like a very unimportant thing to go to the grocery store, you've now put yourself in a high-risk situation. All right? So, does that make sense? All right, so remember that term, seemingly unimportant decision, because we use it a lot. As long as you think before you act, then you won't make these seemingly unimportant decisions. You will avoid high-risk situations. All right? If you don't make the seemingly unimportant decision, you see it says no. If you don't make it, then you continue your abstinence. And your self-efficacy is enhanced. It gets even better and bigger, and you know even more that you can succeed. And there is a decreased probability that you will reoffend. All right? Now, if you make that seemingly unimportant decision, then yes, you can move yourself into a high-risk situation. And this will put you in a negative emotional state. And it also gives you that interpersonal conflict because you are meeting some temptation, all right? High-risk circumstances threaten your self-control and increase your chance of a relapse. If you manage to cope with this high-risk situation, your sense of self-management will survive. If not, your self-management decreases, and you may find yourself in that temptation. That is that interpersonal conflict. All right? Once you do not cope, if you can, you will cope with the high-risk situation, and yes, you will continue your abstinence. All right? But if your adaptive coping responses are not intact, if you are not using them, you will go into a lapse. Now, it's very important that you understand that a lapse is not a relapse. Lapses will happen. It is very important for you not to beat yourself up over a lapse and confuse it with a relapse. Sometimes people go into a lapse and say, oh, I'm a failure, all right? I may as well go through with whatever I was thinking about doing. No, a lapse is just that. It is a lapse, all right? You can correct a lapse because no one has been victimized yet, all right? If you beat yourself up or if you ignore the lapse, don't ignore it, and you're not dealing with it, you will move closer to a full relapse. So what determines if a lapse becomes a relapse? Well, all of the factors. Let's say you go into this lapse and you start having deviant fantasies, or you start looking at pornography, or you go to a bar. Let's say your relapse would be drinking. A lapse would be going into a bar, but you haven't had that drink yet, so don't beat yourself up. You can always walk out the door. Same thing. You can't stop these things. You can see all these points where you can stop, okay? So what determines if a lapse becomes a relapse? Well, all of the factors of a lapse becoming a relapse. You see, lapse is here, relapse is way down here. So all the things that go into determining it are what we call the abstinence violation effect. This is a conflict between the definition that you have of yourself as an abstainer and your recent indulgence in something that is part of your relapse process. You, as an offender, a sex offender, in the midst of a relapse, decide that, let's say, oh, treatment's been a failure, this program has been a failure, and you're just a sex offender. That's it. Can't change it. Or you attribute the lapse to a personal weakness or a failure about you personally. Or you start to recall the positive aspects of your abusive behavior. You remember how it felt good to commit a sexual offense, or how good it felt to gamble, how good it felt to take a drink, how good it felt to eat that piece of cake that you shouldn't have eaten. Any of these things, all right? What you focus on is that immediate gratification. And if you do all those things and beat yourself up for the lapse, you move closer to turning a lapse into a relapse. It says here you have a failure expectation, self-deprecation, problem of immediate gratification, erroneous attributions, increased probability of relapse with this abstinence violation effect, all right? If you tell yourself that cures do not exist, which is true, cures do not exist, if you see lapses as an opportunity to enhance your self-management and accept that you will make some acceptable mistakes. I don't like using the word mistake because I really don't believe that there really are any. But if you accept that there are no cures and you are going to falter sometimes, and you will then learn from your lapses, and each time you face a lapse and you pull yourself out of it, each time it will become easier and easier, and every time you will feel better and better about yourself. All right? And then you will return to abstinence. You'll return to abstinence if you're making use of these coping skills, and they'll be improved every time because you'll be used to that feeling and what to do. All right? Should you not make use of these adaptive coping skills, then you will relapse and you will commit a sexually aggressive act, or you will drink that drink, or you will eat that ice cream, or you will go into that casino and you will put the money in that slot, whatever it is you are trying to abstain from. All right? You need to make use of these coping skills, which we will learn about. All right? I'm not going to leave you without the tools to succeed. All right, so tomorrow I'm going to go over some glossary words that you should know going forward in this module. Like I said, I am going to post this relapse prevention model. It is uber important that you learn this. All right? And until then, please subscribe to this channel. Please share these videos. There is someone out there that this can help. If not you, someone else. And hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I am the most available person on the planet. All right? Until next time, be well.